Good evening and welcome to another episode of Apolitically Incorrect Guyana. My name is KIAN Jabour and as usual, I am your host this evening. So we have a very interesting program. So much has happened in Guyana this week. Well, I guess I feel like I kind of repeat myself on a weekly basis because there's always so much going on in our little village of Guyana. So we have had local government elections. We have had some very interesting updates when it came to the government and the oil contracts. I think the government has now recently released that they are coming with their new legislation soon. So some very interesting topics for us to discuss here today. But we do have a little bit of breaking news to start with. Just before I get into that, I'd like to welcome my guest here with me this evening, and one of our regulars and somebody that I know most of us quite enjoy hearing from because it's always a knowledgeable point of view. Mr. Timothy Jonas, thank you for having us.
Good to be here, Ken. Thank you.
All right. So what's interesting today is very much so breaking, which is something that just came into the news. One of the ministers, Minister Nigel Darmlal, has been accused of, in an open letter penned to the president, has been accused of statutory rape to an extent, in which a young lady has come forward and said she was underage and has been sexually groomed, and it's something that has been somewhat of an ongoing relationship here. So a 16-year-old schoolgirl, in an open letter to the president here finale, has alleged being groomed and preyed upon and sexually assaulted by Minister of Local Government Nigel Darmlal. News source, which is the news source that is covering it, made repeated efforts to get the comments from the minister, but obviously went unable to do so. There are reports that the president and the Minister of Education have both been made aware of the allegations, and senior education officers reached out to the girl and has set up a meeting. So we're going to be looking at that situation a little bit more clearly as we go along. As you know, it's a very, politics, I'm going to start off by saying, and I think this is something key here, politics is a very dirty game. All right. And in my own very personal view, one of the situations that I myself would have experienced is I personally have had situations in my private life in which there was one instance where a cell phone, I was being recorded, and I took a cell phone from somebody and it was twisted very largely out of context. And, lots of allegations were made against me. I was able to, take my situation to the courts. And through that, I'm here that I can sit to you and tell you, none of those allegations would have been proved. And I can be the first to say that even before I got to that stage of being able to prove myself in front of a judge, that these allegations, often rang down as facts. And I am a very firm believer that innocent until proven guilty is the road that should always be walked once allegations are made. And I go as far as even saying I'm sure you can lend to this a lot with your legal capacity, even something as simple as being charged in this country is often headline news and looked at as though somebody has been convicted of a crime. Because in this country, as I'm sure you can, when you get a chance, can explain, people, if you walk to the police station right now and say, well, I was just with KIAN Jabour and he physically assaulted me, through no investigation or any detailed investigation process in the police force, people are charged, right? So the first thing that the police do, you walk into the station, this person has made an allegation against you, you immediately get charged. Well, okay, we're going to carry you to the courts will decide. So all of a sudden in the headlines now, you go through this horrible court process in which you are actually physically handcuffed, even though no proof has been brought against you at all to any point. And I find it, especially more so in the political realm, that these types of situations are used to often break and slander, individuals. And again, I'm definitely not going to sit here and claim innocence of Minister Dharmlal. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say there should be, and hopefully there's a process that has to be done in order to assess these allegations before any kind of punishment is given. But what I will say, and I think this is important for me as well to say, that during my allegations in my political career, I did take a step back. I did tell everyone, I think it was a public letter from the party I was with, that I said, I am voluntarily, through the guidance of our executive, taking a step back while these investigations are ongoing. Only until after I was proven innocent did I come back into the political realm. And in my opinion, this may be the right angle. But what seems to be your take on this type of situation?
Well, first and foremost, I was really disappointed to see so much information and such detailed information in the public domain. It immediately started the court of public opinion and the accusations and cross-accusations. And what should be everyone's priority seemed not to be important. So I want to remind everyone of what the priority is. The priority is the protection of our children. So we need to step back and to protect the identity of the people involved. We need to avoid any further exposure of information of the people involved. And we need to remember that first and foremost, the protection of this child is paramount. It is more important than anything else. She has her whole life to live. And if she has to live that life under a cloud of suspicion and distrust because the power-seeking, self-interested mob go behind her, indifferent to her interests, that's the worst kind of sin. That is something that is unforgivable, and I really hope that everyone remembers that is the priority. Now, insofar as Dharmlal is concerned, the dishonorable minister of dildo fame, I agree with you. He's innocent until proven guilty. And I don't think anyone should or can say anything further than that, despite what the party loyalists will say on both sides, the accusations and cross-accusations and finger-pointing. That's the end of the discussion. Unfortunately, in our little dam that we live on, that is where the problems start. And I'll tell you why. I heard the government in response to this say that the relevant authorities, once they are notified, will investigate and take the proper action. Now, that has not comforted any Guyanese for the last 30 years. And it certainly doesn't comfort any Guyanese now. The first thing I hear when I hear the government say the relevant authorities have to be officially notified so that they can investigate, it tells me that the government's already been notified and has done nothing. Because, again, the buck stops with the government. Now, when we say the relevant authorities, are we talking about the police? I agree. It is for the police, as you say, to investigate crime, investigate accusations, press charges if they feel there's a plausible accusation, and take the action. But does that work in Guyana? As you just pointed out correctly, it's headline news when somebody's charged. So-and-so has been charged. And it's headline news when you shame them by handcuffing them, shackling them, usually for little or no reason, and parading them so that the gleeful reporters can take videos and post it for everybody to see and chuckle, and for the usual acrimonious accusations and cross accusations. I remember images of Roger Luncheon, who is a fine human being, a good person. For full disclosure, he was a family friend and a family doctor many, many years ago. And I have been to his house and have interacted with him. And he, as a frail invalid, was arrested and forced to trudge down to the Soku station during the APNU regime, so-called charged, and everybody crowed about it. I remember when Ashley Singh and Winston Brassington were handcuffed and shackled when they voluntarily came back to face charges, and everybody crowed about it. So you're right. We suddenly start treating a charge as a conviction, and we love to see the mighty fallen. We love to see the great reduced to nothing. It's a reflection of who we are as a people, and we need to confront that. But what I'll also remind you is that those charges don't count for anything because the government has manipulative control of the police. So the reason Brassington was charged, the reason Ashley Singh was charged, the reason Roger Luncheon, even Bar Jagdeo and Irfan Ali were taken down and questioned and all of those things was because the APNU government had control of the police and the machinery of criminal investigation. And what happened? Our president, President Ali, had 19 charges against him and half the country crowed, and it was all political. But even worse, Nandalal, the Attorney General, had these charges for stealing law books against him, and everybody crowed. When the government changed, the charges against Dr. Ali were withdrawn. Can you imagine that? Not suspended, not put off, not stayed. They ended. And nobody's heard a whisper about the theft of the books, the accusation of the theft of the law books against the Attorney General. Nobody's heard a whisper. So we don't need more clear evidence of the fact that if government can control the police and the machinery of implementing and prosecuting charges, then that's what happens in Guyana. APNU did it in their turn, PPP did it in their turn. Good. That is why it is so dangerous and so disheartening when you hear the government say when an accusation is leveled against one of their ministers, a formal report should be made to the proper authority, and the proper authority will take the relevant steps and do the investigation. I'm not comforted by that. So I want three things to be highlighted here. First of all, first, foremost, central, and finally, and at the end of it, the priority is the interest of this child who is at great risk right now of having her future destroyed by the baying mob. Second, Dharamlal, for all his past and however contemptible I personally think he is innocent until he is proven guilty. And third, it is no comfort for the government to say, maybe we got this letter that everybody's talking about, maybe we didn't, but a formal official complaint has to go to the relevant authority. That's not a comfort. That is not a comfort. You made a point that when an accusation had been made against you, you withdrew from your position on an executive of a small party. And I think that's a point that is well made and should be borne in mind. I remember many, many years ago, I was a child, but an accusation was made against Corbyn, I believe. And he stepped down until it was cleared. An accusation was made against Sharma, and his son, who was in Parliament, stepped down. I'll tell you why that's so important. Because if you are in a position of power you are in a position to influence the outcome of an investigation.
Right.
You can go and challenge witnesses with a carrot or a stick. You could bribe them or you could intimidate them. You can go and bribe or intimidate the victim. You can affect how the investigation is being conducted by those relevant authorities that the government has so blandly referred us to. So you need to step back so that there is no contact and the possibility, the appearance of interference is removed. Otherwise, we cannot take comfort. And we've seen it happen even in Guyana, where the fact of the matter is, ethically, our politicians are rock bottom. But even here, we've seen it happen. So now the question has to be asked, what's going to happen now?
I want to use another example here because I'm probably one of the loudest voices when it came to this situation. And that is of the very recent tragedy that took place in Madhya, in which the 20 young school children died. And that fire and what occurred there became very quickly, headline news everywhere, international news across the world. And then, as you have rightfully said, the government has then said, the authorities are going to look at it and we are going to do an investigation when the time is right. I'd like to state firstly and foremost that up to this point, no COI has started. All right? Up to this point. All of those young children have been buried. Those families are still left in mourning. And up to this point, nothing has been done. The only thing that has occurred to this point is another allegation on a young child being dragged through the court system and charged. This is something that she herself has admitted of what has took place. Her lawyer has already come forward. There's been interviews, it's in the public domain. But to this point in time, there has been no justice to 20 children that died in Madhya. Not any sort of information, not any sort of investigation as to where there were shortcomings, as to how to stop it again from happening the next time, nothing. And I think this lends to what we are currently dealing with now once again, of the government stating, we are going to deal with it, we are the relevant authorities. And again, more importantly, your point of hammering home, that the relevant authorities, again, are controlled by the government. So if you are not the relevant authority, you are not the overarching body that has to deal with it, then who deals with it? They tell the police who to arrest. You get involved with the investigation. I think there was even another allegation, not an allegation, there was another issue. I'm not sure if you know about that or remember. I think maybe 2 years ago, in which the chairman of the Letem Region 9 area had shot a young lady in her stomach.
Well, I think that the report said the gun accidentally discharged. but exactly, and nothing came of that. And I couldn't believe that our memory is so short that went away in no time at all. But that was another example of it. The law clearly applies to some people, but some other people have influence. The thing is that we see the symptoms of that. There was litigation just the other day where the government tried to manipulate who should be in the police commission, service commission. And the court found that the interference with the people in the police service commission was unlawful. But during that time, there had been elevations, people had been promoted. Now, who you think gets promoted? And why do you hasten to get rid of the people that you didn't appoint so that you could put in people that you're appointing? It's about control. Yeah. And that spins us full circle. It brings us right back to the question of how is it that you can dictate, first of all, who is charged and how, and then you can dictate when the charge is withdrawn without a whisper, with no accountability. Yeah. And in those circumstances, where you are controlling all of those things, where in fact there's legislation now creating new various branches of police, all appointed by the minister or appointed by the president, without the constitutional safeguards that the Police Service Commission gives. If you are in that environment, what comfort is there? Where do we look? Where do we turn for real accountability and real solace in a sad situation like this?
Right. Let me again. We're on a very pro PPP page when we talk about this, so I know a lot of this information is going over their heads. But I'd like to, for the few out there that are listening, and I say few because, we understand that we're in a country in which we have radicals on both sides, and sometimes no matter how much you explain or how thoroughly you give them proof of it, they will choose not to see it. But one of the main things I think needs to be spoken about, and I want you to please give me your take on it, is the currently ongoing situation here with our judicial system, and the fact that the Judicial Service Commission has not been appointed yet, and that we are very close to the brink of a complete shutdown of our court system. And I'd like to take your opinion on what is going on with that, because I know only certain people will understand the severity of what's going on there and how it's affecting the country.
Well, I wouldn't say we're on the brink of a breakdown. Our judges might be on the brink of a breakdown. We have a statutory complement. I think it's 15 judges we should have or something like that. But in reality, we barely got 10 or 11 right now. Some have retired. Because there's no Judicial Service Commission, there's no entity that can appoint new judges. And the Judicial Service Commission has not been appointed after 3 years, despite many promises. Now, here's the thing. Judges are people just like us. And the reality is that in my years of practice, I believe we have the best crop of judges that I've seen in 20 years. They are diligent, they are hardworking, they have used the new rules that are there for civil procedure, and we are, for the first time, meeting the needs of the society. Matters don't languish for 10 years anymore. They get dealt with. But in the meantime, because we should have 20 or 25 judges and we got 10, we are killing those human beings. We are overworking them in a way that is unconscionable. You see that they got medical problems, that they're tired, but they come out uncomplaining and they work and they work and they work. And why is this? Why is it that there's no Judicial Service Commission? Because each side in turn, and Kian, you made a point about talking over the head of some people. I don't think that's it. Every time I give an example, I can immediately point to the other side that did exactly the same thing in their turn. We have two evil twins in this country. They are the same. Mm-hmm. Each side in their turn wants to control the judiciary. So Granger, the man who had no vision whatsoever, when he was there, he wanted to bring someone from Belize to act as chancellor. He was not going to accept a chancellor who was possibly independent or possibly anti-PNC. Mm-hmm. He wanted to bring somebody that he had more confidence in. Right now, we have judges who are clearly of sterling character, hardworking, sound faculties, good legal brains, not being appointed. Why? Because the powers that be cannot rely on them to give favorable decisions. Now, I was taken aback the other day when a judge gave a decision that was seen as unfavorable to the state. And someone in a social environment said, that judge is not thinking about his professional future. You know, I want to ask you in the public, I want to ask you to think about this. If our judges gave decisions and conducted themselves, having at the back of their minds their own professional advancement, where would we be? If there is one thing we need with our independent judiciary, it must be the absolute confidence, the conviction that the judges will apply the law without fear, without favor, without prejudice. And if the decision according to law is unpopular, good. And if the decision according to law is popular, equally good, not better. So the fact that that could be said of a decision of a judge, to me, speaks volumes of the quality of the judge. Good for that judge, excellent. He is giving a decision that might not win him friends in government, but he's doing his job without fear, without favor, according to law. We need 10 more judges. We need our number of judges to be double. And people don't think it's important until they get to court, until somebody sues them, or until they find themselves before a court. And they want to know, why is the judge fixing a trial date down in December or January? I want my issues dealt with now. The judge is doing that because he got 200 other matters between now and November. And if we could double the number of judges, he would only have 100 matters between now and November, and he could fit you in 2 months or 3 months. That is called common sense. And if we can't figure that out and draw the connection, then something's wrong with us. So what's the solution? Some people would say, oh, the solution is for the president in good faith to appoint the Judicial Service Commission and for the opposition to cooperate and we all hold hands and do the right thing. Now, if that had been a solution, we wouldn't be in this mess in the first place. That's not a solution, that's a dream. It's a dream that runs against human nature and is totally untenable. So let's forget about that and look for a real solution. I had advanced the suggestion, and I want to do it now, and I'll raise it again. If judges are to be independent, then the way to make them independent is to have them appointed by people who are not politicians. And I think the best people to appoint judges are the judges themselves. I would like to recommend that if there's a vacancy in the judiciary, first of all, the statutory complement of judges should increase to 25 right away. But if there's a vacancy in the judiciary, that vacancy should be filled after whoever applies that's eligible to apply, 5 years at the bar and all of those other qualifications. The judges must pick them. And there's a reason for that. If the existing pool of judges by majority decision were permitted to appoint their successors, appoint new judges to fill vacancies on the bench, a number of things would happen. You see, the judges know among themselves who works hard, who's smart, who's lazy, who skives, who avoids work. And when they are filling their own vacancies, they're going to want someone who's smart, who's doing the work well, who is working hard to pull their weight, because if you get somebody who pulls their weight, it's less work for you. And therefore, people will be appointed to the judiciary based on merit and no other basis. Not just that. In a professional environment, you respect profession. You don't think about politics. That's secondary. So you will appoint somebody with whom you feel you can sit down shoulder to shoulder at a collegiate level and have mutual respect. And that's irrelevant to politics. If judges could appoint their replacements, could fill the pool of the judiciary by majority decision of the judges, take the politicians out of it completely, we would have our full complement of judges. And more than that, the same judges, when there's a vacancy in the chancellorship or the chief justice position, should by majority decision decide which of them or which other applicant should be appointed to be chancellor or chief justice. Take it away from the politicians. Allow our judges to be truly independent, and you will see how quickly the prestige, the respect, the independence, and the aura of the judiciary increases, and how well they start to do their job and how quickly. And last of all, to complete that independence, you link their salaries to ministers, because I promise you, those ministers make sure their salary is good. They do it through Parliament. So the Chancellor and Chief Justice maybe should be linked to the Prime Minister in terms of income. A Court of Appeal judge should be linked to a senior minister. First instance judge should be linked to a junior minister. Once you link the benefits and salaries, you then have an independent core, self-sustaining, filling their own vacancies, and you will never have the situation where we have no chancellor confirmed and no chief justice confirmed for the last, how many years is it now? It's time we start looking for solutions and systems and recognize that the individuals who are pretending to lead us are not leading us. They are looking after themselves.
Well, strong words. I appreciate that, everything that you say is extremely solution based. And, I do know that ANUG is heading into Parliament soon. So I do look forward to, I know you have quite a long list of amendments and changes to bills and laws that you're looking at here in Guyana. So I know, like the public, we are all looking forward to seeing who's going to be seconding ANUG's proposals and looking to really move Guyana forward. Because we watched very recently, we know that a lot of people have sat down and said, well, this seat is being wasted by the third parties that have accumulated it. But that is because there's a joint system and there's a new organization going in soon. So I know myself and the public, everybody's looking forward to seeing what the next steps are.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a lot that will be said. But if anyone has said the seat is being wasted, I'll rather suspect that they are loyalists either to one of the large parties or the other. Because simple maths tells you that if the PPP have 33 of those 65 seats, the people who hold 31 have no voice, and the people who hold the person who holds one has no voice.
Right.
Because the 33 wins. The 33 trumps everything. So how can you waste one out of 32 seats in a 65-seat house?
Right.
Mathematically speaking, those people need to shut up and rethink their position. Because I don't think that it helps this country or moves us forward when we throw out silly accusations, level silly arguments that we know have no meaning.
Right.
And in fact, one of the things I hope we get to talk about is trolls, because I've been seeing some Facebook trolls that have been following you around, and I would like to identify and acknowledge some of them. In fact, let me start now, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely, because we have a hot topic to go into next, which is the local government elections. But please go ahead. We got some time.
There's some symptoms that you look for when you're looking for online trolls, people who follow you and make comments to run interference. So you get cussed down for anything, no matter what you're saying, because you're perceived to be anti the party that either pays them or asks them to run interference. So this is what a troll does. They open a fake Facebook account and they put in a name that is either gender neutral, like Terry Chowby, so you don't know male or female or anything, or they put in a name that obviously is not their name, like Barbara Barbs. What they then do is they send out friend requests to everybody. And most of them will try to present a persona that is relatively young and female. Because first of all, that's non-threatening. You see, if a man sends you a Facebook request, especially if you're a woman, you will think twice and want to know if you know this person and you may decline. But because a young or relatively young female is non-threatening, you click because you might know them, you're not sure. And they then appear to have plausibility because they have friends. So the next thing you got to do is you got to go onto their page to see what personal information is there. The reason I raise this is because there's a Barbara Barbs. When you go on her, well, I say her, but I don't know who it is. So when you go on this person's page, this troll's page, there's no personal information. There are no family pictures. There's no happy birthdays. They're just a couple political statements. But you check every program that KIAN has hosted and every program that a small party has been on, and you see this fake person running interference. Now, I don't know if these people who run interference as trolls have a sense of themselves that they are doing something good. Because immediately what they're doing is dishonest, because they're misrepresenting who they are and they're trying to pretend that they're real people and really contributing, when all they're doing is being paid or being helped by one of the two parties. But by undermining and by making statements that are banal and sometimes utterly foolish, they are distracting from a real conversation. I don't know how they sleep at night. I like to get some kind of job satisfaction and think things through and feel good about what I've done at the end of the day. But I invite you to look at the trolls and to identify them and just spot them and name them. Sorry, Kian. I just wanted to throw that.
It's a good topic. It's a good topic because we're watching social media and its influence on the country. But this actually leads into a wonderful new conversation, which is our local government elections.
Ah, yes.
And talking about social media's influence and talking about all the trolls and what kind of effect they're having. Well, let me tell you, I don't think I could have been more surprised at the results of these elections. And why I'm surprised is because not a lot has changed. And I thought that was a mind-blowing to me, because I'm going to tell you, if you go through social media or you go through the campaign trail that the PPP went on, which is by far and above the largest local government campaign that any political party has ever rallied. This was a national level campaign. Okay? Billions of dollars spent in this campaign. All right, every single village, every single town in this country had multiple rallies. To the point where they held barbecues, they gave away 200,000 shirts, all right, red shirts till you don't know what to do, all right. They paid for sponsored online ads. The trolls came out in their numbers. Well, they took on the persona of something called the red wave. Here, if you asked me on Sunday what was going to happen in the local government election, the PPP, as far as the newsrooms go and the Chronicle and the social media goes, that's it. PPP taking over everything. They run in this country, right? They're taking over all the tongues. They're taking over everything. Now, I compare this to an APNU campaign that never actually existed. The most you got out of it was Aubrey Norton walking around town, who is already, I'm going to be very honest with you, probably in the in the PNC camp as well, probably not the favorite person. All right? There's definitely factions pushing back. So they dealt with their internal issues. Then they dealt with a lack of resources and obviously campaign financing, particularly because of what happened in 2020. And then election day came around. And the votes were split almost exactly as they were in 2018. Because I say this, and everybody's going to jump up, all the trolls about to jump up and say, no, PPP made inroads because Jagdeo told us. Okay? What Jagdeo didn't tell you is all the inroads that APNU also made in certain areas like Mocha, for example, in which they got almost 3,000 more votes. All right? What Jagdeo also didn't tell them was in areas like Crabwood Creek, LBI, areas such as their strongholds like this, that they lost votes in, that the PPP lost votes in. And I was really, really and truly blown away, because if you look at these statistics and the numbers, and anybody's free to do it, and you do your comparisons, in Georgetown by itself, we saw the PPP all boys tongue what they did. We saw them, all their crossover people. We saw them campaign in every town and village that they do, every community that they do in national elections. They followed the exact same campaign. In Georgetown, they only gained 5,000 more votes. 5,000. But here's what Jagdeo didn't tell them. The PNC, APNU also gained 3,000 votes compared to 2018. So all of that work was for 2,000 votes. Now, I also want to pay special close attention. Again, another piece of information that Jagdeo didn't let out was the fact that you had constituency representatives like Mr. Wickedy, I think his name is Malcolm Ferreira, who was an independent independent candidate that ran in the All Boys Town area in 2018 and won. He was the representative for that constituency from 2018. Well, he joined forces with the PPP come 2023, and he lost. He is no longer the constituency. The APNU candidate won it. The people would have rather voted for the independent category than vote for the PPP. And since they didn't have the option again this time, they gone to APNU. They gone back to APNU.
Yeah, and I don't know why you say you were surprised. I suspect that you did have more free effect than for anything else.
No, I just promise you I'm surprised.
Well,
I bought into the red wave. I myself, as a political commentator, sat down and said, partner, with all the money they got and resources and how they buying contracts given away, they gave out $40,000 for September school, conveniently the week before elections. Don't let's talk about the amount of contracts that were signed the week before. I had to believe that they had to have bought this thing.
There was a lot of inducement to those crossover people that went from green to red. There's no doubt about that. There was a lot of inducement. And it's been a long time since I've seen such a carefully run campaign, such a thorough campaign, so much money, so much resources put into a campaign. I understand that the same thing APNU were accused of doing back in 2020 of trucking supporters from one location to another. That was happening in quarantine because the people weren't coming out to support.
Absolutely.
So a lot was being done. But here's the thing. We continue to vote race. We will vote along ethnic lines because it's the sensible thing to do. Because we know that if the party of the other ethnic persuasion is in power, we will be excluded and we will be ostracized. We know that. It doesn't happen because of a deliberate policy at the top. It happens because those people at the top put their supporters and their friends and family in at the middle to deal with management, to allocate land in the areas, to decide who's getting contracts, to do everything. And at that level, it becomes more obvious that there is favoritism. So you can't blame Guyanese for voting for the folk that look like them. And you understand that it's logical. And no amount of spending money, buying votes, hugging up people that don't look like you that you've bought over is going to change the fact that Guyanese are not buying in to the false promises that are being made. They recognize the truth. And the truth is we have two ethnic parties. And both ethnic parties have policies which ostracize one side and favor the other side. So I don't care if they put Bugs Bunny in a green shirt. The APNU supporters will vote for Bugs Bunny. And if they put Daffy Duck in a red shirt, and there have been a couple of them, the PPP supporters will vote for Daffy Duck. They don't care who the person is. They care what color shirt they're wearing.
Yeah.
Now, the truth is, and I think this is what I suspect is going to concern the government. They were riding on a very high wave. They cut their cards right. Not just did they win the 2020 election, but they fought a very good, very determined, very courageous fight against an attempt to rig by APNU. They succeeded in that. Just at a time when oil money started to roll in, so they could start handing out contracts and handing out money and building roads and showing how well they're doing and giving you the Because We Care school money and all of these things. So they cut their cards right. Now, on the other side, you had APNU totally in chaos.
Yeah.
Granger's out, can't see the man. I have no complaint about that, but it's a fact. Can't see him. They're in disarray. Norton goes in to replace them, but he has to fight back against the reality that every Guyanese knows, that they tried to rig the election. They have no funds. They have internal bickering going on. And the fact is, Norton, I've only interacted with him possibly once. I don't know the man personally. But from what I've seen, he's a smart man, and I understand he's an educated man. But nobody will ever accuse Norton of being inspiring or charismatic.
Right.
Nobody will ever accuse Norton of that. And those failings from the person who is in charge and who has to pull his party out of the doldrums that they've been left in after the 2020 disaster would say, well, boy, how are you carrying on these local government elections? And yet, we know that Patricia Chase Green took off her green shirt, put on a red shirt, and promptly lost the people who used to support her. Why? Because those people don't care who she is. She has no personal power, no personal pull.
Right.
The power is in the party. So all of them, you know something? Norton could wake up tomorrow and decide he is leaving PNC and going to join PPP. And he'd carry one vote with him. Jack Dio could wake up tomorrow and say he's leaving PPP and going to PNC. And he'll carry one vote with him. The people don't care about the individuals. The individuals have no power unless that power is associated with the party within which they have climbed.
Right.
And that is what we saw. Now, more than that, if we have those results after PNC tried to rig an election, what we know is that the PNC can do no wrong as far as their loyalists are concerned. They have not lost ground. And if this local government election and the results is a test, a litmus test for national elections in a couple of years, I think people need to look twice. They are not in the state of disarray and hopelessness that people think they are in. The loyalists are there. The loyalists will not change, just like the PPP loyalists are there and will not change. Just like the PPP loyalists will forgive corruption and forgive circling the wagon to protect their own, the APNU loyalists will forgive electoral fraud and lack of vision. They don't care. They are voting along ethnic lines.
I also want to add something to that. I think a part of the forgiveness of the flaws of both of these parties by their loyal supporters also comes with the notion that when another party goes in, the average man's life is not getting much better. So you sit here and you watch APNU having been in power, everybody being upset with them come the end of 2020, everybody cast their vote. We getting rid of APNU. Electoral fraud occurs. APNU is embarrassed and in disarray and looked at in scorn. Then comes the big knight in shining armor PPP. 3 years now in, these APNU people are now sitting there saying, well, wait a second. These people, as bad and terrible as they were, my life ain't that much better. And it's something that the incumbent always will lose on. Because the people, when they're in that dire situation, will always have to believe the grass is greener. Because it can't get more brown than it is over here. Right? And it's very interesting to me because what happens is when I analyze these types of situations is I realize that when we watch the PPP, and there were lots and lots of allegations of it, of the PPP buying votes, voter buying. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think it's a very hard fought argument for somebody to say that that was not occurring. Okay, as far as contracts are being given out, I mean, we have watched people cross over from PPP, from PNC to PPP, and all of a sudden you're watching this one flower shop and this one supermarket building road now, right? You've watched all of a sudden, you know, social media commentators and news people all of a sudden no longer have an unbiased approach, but yet building road, all right? So you're sitting down here saying, well, wait a second, how you go from running a TV program to being a road contractor? And you sit down there and you start to question, well, wait a second, you are now just eating out of the hand and feeding you, right? And understandably so. I'm not going to be one to sit here and say, I judge you morally. You got to feed your family. I get it. All right? And you got to do what you got to do, and you got to kiss the ring, and you got to play a game. All right, at least until election time. I'm not gonna laugh too much more at the fact that the people eat out all the barbecue, the people take the shot, the people take the 40,000 and still go in the booth and vote up. No, right? But what I will say, and this is actually more important because I'm on a PVP kind of platform here, all right, in which most, as you can tell through the comments, are PPP supporters. What I will say to you is I think you need to take 2 steps back for all of you that, avid PPP supporters living in your communities around the country. And think to yourself, as you give your vote day in and day out, without thinking, without blinking, without batting an eye, to the PPP, I want you to think for a second of what state your life is in, whether your life has gotten better, whether you are putting an abundance of food on your table now, whether you have a savings account in the bank now, whether you have upgraded and built your house, whether you personally now can walk into a hospital and get health care and be, you and your family are well taken care of. If you could pick up the phone and call the police and they show up at your house when you're being robbed, if you're scared of being robbed, and I want you to really take an assessment. If your children going to school and being educated properly, and really take an assessment on whether you feel like your life has gotten better, whether you feel you have upgraded, whether the PPP has done you justice for your vote and given you something to build on, to leave for your children, to leave a legacy with, or whether or not you still scraping to make ends meet, whether or not you still struggling to survive. And then you sit down and you watch the PPP hand out big $100 million contracts to people in the PNC that they're trying to come over, that they're trying to gain more power with. And they're giving them and they're giving them. And you wonder to yourself, well, wait a second. I am not one of these people that they need to fight for. And they are giving me nothing. But yet these people, in order to give themselves more power, are calling on those same PNC people and hugging them up and taking pictures on Billing Road and handing them contracts and giving them money. And at the end of the day, the truth is they're still not even getting the votes. So now you got to ask yourself, if you feel like your PPP party is doing you justice, is your life getting better? Are you seeing the oil money? Has things within the past 5 years with their billions of dollars in oil money, have you seen it? Have you felt it?
Again, tit for tat, because the older folk will remember. And the thing is, the PNC was in power for 28 years before the PPP took over in 92. But the older folk will remember that a lot of PNC supporters used to complain because the PNC took their supporters for granted, their ethnic base for granted, and tried to reach out by giving agricultural land and granting leases and that kind of thing to people that they perceived to be PPP supporters in the hope of winning them over. This is always the laughable aspect of our tit-for-tat, hopeless governance. That you got your base, and they got their base, and it's all ethnic. And you would never go and support the other side. But somewhere you hold this vain, foolish hope that there is some possibility that you can reach out and entice crossover votes to come over to you, even though you would never cross over to them.
Right.
And there's this hope, and you see it. You see efforts made to reach over to say, oh, let's try and buy some votes, or let's show that we're doing this for you, or building a road for you. And I've even heard complaints among people representing the government that, man, no matter what you do for these people, they still don't like you. And it's true.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
at the end of the day, an ethnic-based party is going to look after family and friends, and both the PNC and PPP in their turn did it.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, we're coming to an end here. Another quick topic of conversation, and this is a little bit, I feel, a bit for the business community and what's going on in Guyana, because, I try to look at everybody in their different walks of life and what's affecting them. And I know the business community right now is facing a big shortage of the US currency. I know a lot of businesses can't do transactions, can't bring in their containers, can't bring in their goods. And we're having a lot of issues in this country with foreign exchange. This has been obviously coupled with, and again, Ashley Singh had, for all the PPP supporters, you can go back and listen to Ashley Singh's 2022 budget speech, 2023 budget speech, in which he himself has acknowledged that the timber, the gold, the rice industries, all of our main backbone sectors have digressed.
Have shrunk. Yeah.
Have shrunk. And these are the industries that are bringing in most of our foreign exchange into this country, particularly gold and rice. And what we're watching now is clearly a mismanagement. And I want to put this term over, because at the end of the day, we are still making oil money and being paid in US currency for that oil money. That money that's being put into the oil account in New York, a natural resource fund account, is in US dollars. So I say mismanaged because although we may have been losing on one side, I know we're gaining on another. I want to actively state that I believe that this is a mismanagement of our country's finances. When I am watching sectors that should be growing, shrinking, and now I'm watching other areas of business that should be thriving being held back because of a lack of resources. Now, just as we have a few more minutes, what do you think is your take on this? And the US dollar is now soaring, just so you know as well, to $220, which is what the local going rate is, $220 to one, well, and climbing.
I think this is one of the huge dangers of gas and oil that everybody spoke about, everybody expected, and we've been assured over the last 3 years would not happen, but it's happening. In the economy, you need to balance your foreign exchange earnings. Traditionally, our foreign exchange earnings have been what you said: rice, sugar, gold, timber, to a lesser extent, seafood and that kind of thing. And we've seen each of those areas become more and more depressed. And what is happening, we are relying on and crowing about the economy expanding, but the expansion is really only gas and oil. And if we become entirely dependent on gas and oil and sacrifice those other industries, we are going to do ourselves a serious harm. There will be a problem. Now, I'm surprised that Ashni Singh doesn't see this. I think he does. Ashni Singh is one of the smartest men I've ever met.
Absolutely, extremely capable.
Very bright shot. I don't know how much power and autonomy he's been given. I was actually disappointed when I saw he had been demoted from Minister of Finance before 2015, and now he's Minister with responsibility for finance under the Vice President. I was personally disappointed about that. I think he's one of the most capable people in the PPP. But that problem has to be resolved, and the more you hide it, the worse it will get. Now, these same contracts that you're talking about that are awarded require foreign exchange. You're paying your contractors in Guyana dollars, but they got to go and they got to buy stuff using foreign exchange. And therefore, the demand for foreign exchange is increasing. Yeah. And if we are seeing reductions in foreign exchange earnings from gold, from diamond, from timber, no more sugar, from rice, we have an unbalanced economy that needs to be remedied. I hope something can be done, because it will push inflation and it will make the lives of the ordinary Guyanese people much worse.
Well, again, more topics for conversation like this to obviously in coming weeks as we watch situations unravel. But talking about unraveling, our show has definitely come to an end. Time has slipped away and left us. And once again, thank you for coming on. I know, like everyone else out there, I myself am always educated when you come on the show. And as things progress and so on, I hope you can continue to join me here, especially with upgrades coming very quickly to the ANUG party. So I know Anug is going into Parliament, and there's a lot of work to be done because, again, I'll slip this one in. If this local government showed me one thing, is that we're looking at another 2020 election in which there is going to be quite a gap there for third parties.
I believe so.
All right.
Thanks for having me, Ken. It was a pleasure as always.
As always, guys, thank you for joining us. This is Apolitically Incorrect. My name is KIAN Jabour, and I hope you all enjoy your lovely Friday evening. We are going to be back here next week. I'm actually not. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be here next week. But hopefully we're going to have some more representatives on, and you guys can contribute and take part in the conversation. And that is all for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Take care.